Okay, again, thank you for inviting me to this presentation on your webinar. I will just go really quickly through that. The Central California Animal Disaster Team is considered a community animal response team, which is a CART, which Lisa has referenced to. And we do serve 7 counties within the San Joaquin Valley. And I see some of the participants on this webinar are partners that we work with. I believe Sergeant Joey Wilder is on from Madera County, and Area Commander Kathy Curtis from the Sheriff's Office from Fresno County is on this call. And as Rebecca mentioned, we have responded to 35 wildland fires. We just got off the Moccasin Fire in Mariposa County, and we were requested to deploy from the CDFA to the Lightning Complex Fire in Solano County. Kern County, we had the Stagecoach Fire, and I just want to mention we were involved with the responding to the Camp Fire in Paradise in 2018, where there was over 10,000 animals that were being evacuated, sheltered, or sheltered in place. So today's, I wanted to talk about more on preparedness today instead of response. And then in part 2, that's next week, we'll talk a little bit more in regards to, and I'm going to focus on more evacuation response instead of sheltering, but we'll talk about disaster preparedness for livestock and equine owners and planning for on the local level, which probably Ken Austin will probably talk about more for, on his presentation. So why is planning for our livestock, and we'll include equine owners, so important? Is because due to their size and their transportation needs. When we have a disaster, it's our large animals that tend to be more of a challenge for us to evacuate instead of your companion animals like dogs and cats and birds, etc. Animal owners for large animals, I know there's like 3 of them that answered the poll that says they do have a plan, which is great. It didn't say you had a written plan, but at least you have some form of a plan. We do encourage all animal owners to have a written plan so you can distribute it to maybe your family members in case you're not home when the disaster happens. Our biggest challenge for livestock, I would think, would be transportation for our owners for transportation, because we have found many in our mountain communities where the wildfires happen, they don't have trailers. And so we encourage people who own livestock to have a buddy system with family members, neighbors, to help them in the event that they need assistance to get their animals out. Another thing that we really encourage is to provide ID on animals. I know people who have herds of animals like goats and sheep, they might not have, ID on them, but especially with horses, there are times when the horses are let loose during fires, and they are hopefully, rescued, but we have no idea where they came from. We do encourage like microchips on that. If you go to our website, we have a whole list of information on emergency planning for small and large animals. On the local level, there are federal and state laws in place that state that local governments do have to have an animal disaster plan in place. Most of our counties do. But within that plan, what we want to focus on is pre-identifying roles and responsibilities of who does what when there is some type of animal, say, evacuation or animal component needs during a disaster. Who's responsible? What are the roles of your nonprofits if you use them? And also animal care resources. Have a directory of transportation companies or people who can transport animals, qualified livestock and equine handlers, and evacuation and sheltering sites. Currently, our organization is updating our emergency animal resource directory that we will distribute to all of our county Office of Emergency Services, animal control agencies, and Lisa will send one up your way too for CDFA. So what agency is in charge of animals during disasters? Primarily it's going to be your animal control, or sometimes they call them now animal services agency. They're the agency that will coordinate with law enforcement, fire agencies, and office emergency services to provide the direction for sheltering and evacuation of animals. They will coordinate with other outside organizations if needed, like a CART, like like our organization, but they're the lead agency that we will work with and what other agencies will work with. So one of the things we want to do is pre-identify animal care resources. As mentioned, one of our biggest challenges is having to transport animals out of a evacuation zone once an evacuation order has been implemented by the sheriff's office. And these are the types of organizations that you can contact that can help transport animals. For Fresno County, we work with the Sheriff's Search and Rescue, the posse, Kathy Curtis's team that have been very, very instrumental in evacuating all the large animals. For the small animals, we work with our animal control humane officers within Fresno. In Madera County, we work closely with their animal control agency from Madera County. And for our large animal evacuation team, it tends to be our Corsico Rodeo Ground personnel that really assist us. You can contact your county ag commissioner and farm bureaus for maybe livestock haulers, even to help with non-commercial livestock. Your livestock equine veterinarians may have some referrals to, and of course the carts. What you want to do is we want to get people who are experienced and vetted, people who have background checks, to go in to evacuate animals, because you're going into people's homes and you want to make sure that they come out with nothing but the animals, because there has been some challenges with theft and during disasters. Qualified livestock equine handlers, again, the picture that you see there is the Fresno County Sheriff's mounted units. You can also reach out to livestock and equine clubs and organizations, 4-H'ers, Future Farmers of America. I would recommend more the Future Farmers of America to help, because in terms of, we've approached 4-H, which are great, but they tend to be the younger children that we have concerns with in terms of liability. But it just depends on whatever county it is. And of course, the community animal response teams. Again, there has to be a lot of research done in terms of trying to pre-identify these resources. And also we want to pre-identify sheltering sites or evacuation sites to take the animals once they're being evacuated. Here's a list, just a partial list of probably where you can take your animals: fairgrounds, rodeo grounds, high school, college farms, equestrian centers, racetracks, stockyards, auction facilities, private stables and farms, as long as they're vetted and they're qualified. We have a lot of people that during a disaster that will call and say, hey, you can use my place, I have acreage, and they're very, they open up their homes, but the thing is, we don't know who they are. We don't know if they have the proper fencing. We don't know how, if they would take care of the animals. So we get, and there's some liabilities issues on both ends for us. So we try to get facilities that we know of that are existing and qualified places through via animal control, sheriff's office, etc. For example, here are some sheltering sites within Fresno County that we use: the Squaw Valley Rodeo Grounds, Fresno Fair if we would ever need it. Sierra High School Farm we use quite a bit during in the Auberry area. Clovis Rodeo Grounds, Reed College has come, has stated that they really want to help us. And Madera County is primarily the Corsico Rodeo Grounds, Madera Fairgrounds for large animals. For small animals, we have different areas, churches, and community centers that we use. So this is pretty much a wrap up, because we want to keep this short, but for next week, we'll talk a little bit more on the response procedures during for animal evacuations and establishing sheltering sites and documentation, which is very, very important. So I'm going to end my evacuation. I'm going to end my presentation with any questions that you can ask at the end of this presentation, at the end of all the presentations, and here's my contact information. And thank you again, Rebecca, for inviting me.